So today the announcement came out. I guess why wait until now, and why make this announcement that the UAW is backing Kamala Harris?
It really wasn't waiting. It was just a matter of, we have a policy and a procedure we follow now. This is a member-driven union. So, when President Biden, announced he was not going to seek re-election, naturally we wanted to start having conversations with our leadership, and not just at the national level, but locally, reaching out through the country, through the different regions, and talking to our CAP or political reps, and just getting feedback of where members were, what they were hearing, and so just give us time to analyze where people were, what they were thinking, and how they're feeling about it. And then at that point, we've had more discussions since, and so once we go through that process, we feel the time is now, time's right, and obviously that Kamala Harris is the only option in this election that we're going to get behind, and we're going to win.
I guess why Kamala? For UAW workers.
Look, it's really, again, I go back to, in our Big Three campaign, a lot of things we did, we looked at facts. We put facts out there, about how the companies were extremely profitable over a decade, and workers, were going backwards. And it's the same thing in anything we do. We look at facts. So it's not political party, it's not my opinion or a board member's opinion. It's putting facts in front of our members and in front of ourselves. And when you do that, when you take Donald Trump and look at his body of work over decades, and what he's said, what he's done when it comes to working class values, working class people, and when you look at Kamala Harris and her career path and what she's done over the years, it's a very telling story, and it makes the decision very easy. I mean, going back to the recession, Donald Trump blamed the auto workers for what was wrong with the auto companies, which was a complete fallacy. It was a out of control mortgage crisis and banking industry that undermined everything, and workers, again, like always, they get unfairly blamed for any time there's something wrong in this country. And so, you go back to 2015 when Trump was running, he talked about doing a rotation in this country of our jobs out of the Midwest, somewhere where they pay less money, so we'd be begging for our jobs back at less pay. When he was president in 2019, Lordstown Assembly Plant, GM Powertrain Plant here in Warren, Romeo Ford plant for, in Romeo, the engine plant there, were all slated for closure. Trump did nothing to get involved, not one thing. He didn't say anything, didn't do anything to try to find ways to help save those jobs. 2019, GM was on strike for 40 days. Donald Trump was nowhere to be found, didn't say nothing, do nothing. Now let's look at Kamala Harris. 2019, you want to know where she was when GM was on strike for 40 days? She was on the picket line standing there with them. She stood with workers on strike. You look at 2023 in our sit-down strike last year, our stand-up strike, and you look at what was going on with Lordstown workers under Trump got left behind. Their plant got closed in Ohio. Workers were scattered all over the country to GM plants. Under Biden and Harris and their administration, they went to work with us in bargaining to save a community in Belvidere, Illinois. Contrary to what Trump says, through the IRA, the Biden-Harris administration created billions of dollars to encourage companies to locate battery work in the USA and to partner with unions in doing that. So they would be good paying jobs, standard setting jobs. You go back now in Lordstown, Ohio, where Trump left people behind and they were dispersed all over the country. Under Kamala Harris and Joe Biden, workers are now transferring back to Lordstown because they can get a job at the Altium battery plant there. They're bringing people home that Trump left behind. And on top of that, like I said, Belvidere, Illinois, same story. That plant was left for dead. The Biden administration, Kamala Harris went to work with us to find out what they could do. They got billions of dollars put in play to help save that community. There's product going there. There's a battery plant going there. And so it's a tale of two stories here. Donald Trump represents the billionaire class and the corporate class, and Kamala Harris has a history and a track record of standing up with working class people. So it makes the decision pretty easy for us.
And so when Joe Biden first, stepped down out of this race, I guess what was your initial reaction? Were you kind of hoping that maybe he might make that decision? Like, what was going through your mind?
Look, it was, we all saw, the debate, and I think all of America had a pause with that. Concern. Look, at the end of the day, it was really, to me, it's just a bittersweet moment. I love Joe Biden. In my lifetime, he's been the greatest president of my life, and for labor, by far the greatest president we've seen. He's done more in 4 years for working class people than a lot of presidents that had 2 terms have done. And so, it's a bittersweet moment. I mean, I think we all get to that point in our life. We're all going to be there someday. I mean, you're a lot younger than I am, but at some point we're all going to get to that point where we got to make that decision. But, the amazing thing to me is you think about how rare that is, that a person in literally the most powerful position in the world is willing to put the country before himself. And I can guarantee you one person that would never put anybody before himself, and that's Donald Trump. So, it was a very emotional, few weeks between that and then, Vice President Harris, being thrust into this and at a moment's notice, and then, just getting with our members, talking to working class people, and just, looking at how we want to do things going forward. So, it's been a lot just in a few weeks, but Biden's record speaks for itself and where he stands with workers, and so does Kamala Harris, and so does Donald Trump.
I guess how important is, when the UAW leadership comes together and says we're endorsing this candidate, how important is that, and what does that mean for, I guess, the everyday workers in the UAW? Obviously, not all of them will probably vote for Kamala, but what does that mean, when you send that message to the entire union?
Well, I think it's just, again, we don't tell people who to vote for, but it's our job to evaluate candidates, to look at that and put facts out there. And our members, everyone's going to go in the voting booth and decide who they're going to vote for. But I can assure you, a huge majority of our members will vote for Kamala Harris, and because they understand who stands with them, who stood with them shoulder to shoulder in 2019, and who wasn't there. And so I think it's a very telling picture. And look, working class people, not just a union. I mean, you look at what we did in our Big 3 fight, non-union workers in this country benefited from what we did. I mean, Toyota workers at non-union plants got massive pay increases with what we call the UAW bump. And so, what we do affects everybody. And so, I think a lot of people look at what we do, and they look at the facts we put out there, and I think that'll influence a lot of people. And I do believe we'll win Michigan big time. I believe that Kamala Harris will win Michigan in a big way once people look at those things.
And we have heard from some UAW members who are planning to vote for former President Donald Trump. Mm-hmm. I guess what do you kind of say to those workers, who are pro-union or pro-auto workers, and they're going to vote for Donald Trump? What do you say to them? Well,
I mean, it's it's what's good about America. You have a right to vote for whoever you want to vote for. I mean, we just obviously look. You're never going to agree on everything. I mean, all we can do is put the facts out there. I mean, I believe they're voting against their own interest. When you look at plants that closed under Donald Trump and he did nothing, you look at under Biden. I mean, again, I go back to that. Plants were in trouble and they went to work to try to help us. They're also creating jobs in this country, something Trump didn't do in the auto industry. So, but at the end of the day, I mean, people have their reasons sometimes, and it's not always what affects their work. It can be several things, but so, we're not, like I said, we don't tell people who to vote for. We just give them the facts and try to help them make the best decision for our interest, for their interest.
And at the RNC, Trump had called you out by name at one point and said that you should be fired. What do you say to that? Were you watching this first off, and did you see these comments? And
actually, I wasn't watching, but my phone started blowing up with people texting me, and it was I just kind of laughed. I mean, look, those are Trump's 2 favorite words. He wants to fire everybody. Hell, he fired 40 of his people he put on his cabinet, over the term of his presidency, which, it's who he is. He's the boss. He represents the boss. He represents the corporate class. He doesn't care for working class people. And, the irony of his comment in the context he was saying was that the UAW should be ashamed and that I should be fired, was that, think about what he said in that sentence. He said, China is building factories in Mexico. Well, what the hell does the UAW, do we have to do in America with a foreign company building a factory in Mexico? I don't know what role we play in that. I know we have no role in that. Obviously, Donald Trump doesn't understand that concept. But I can tell you what I do know about the battery EV industry. With the Inflation Reduction Act and the money that the Biden-Harris administration put forward in this and the conditions they put in there, about pushing companies to partner with unions to make these good paying jobs. There's over 30 factories that have been built or being built in this country to deal with battery EV work. And those are being built in America because Harris and Biden administration put funding toward that, to make sure that work is located here. What did Donald Trump do when he was president to do anything like that? I can tell you what he did, nothing. We're for sale. Donald Trump admits it himself, he's for sale. He proudly admits he's taken $45 million a month from Elon Musk. Basically all he's saying is, I'm a sellout and here's my price and I'll do whatever you want as long as you give me money. I'll gladly sell out to working class people, and that's what Donald Trump's doing. So he just basically told us, he's a lapdog for Elon Musk and whoever else will do the bidding.
You kind of mentioned EV battery plants. I know Trump, even I think in that same speech, the RNC said that he would get rid of the EV mandate. I guess is the UAW preparing for the possibility that if he is elected, something like that happens? And what is kind of your thought on that situation?
Well, again, it goes back to how little Donald Trump understands the auto industry and how little he cares about the auto industry and auto workers. So let's say you eliminate the entire battery industry. The big three alone closed 65 plants in the last 20 years, many of them under Donald Trump's presidency. So what does that do if he kills the battery industry? What does it do to save jobs in America? I don't know. It doesn't do anything. Donald Trump had an opportunity to save auto jobs in America when he was president, and he did nothing. So the whole thing is a fallacy, and it's just a point. He's all talk. He's a con man, and that's what he does best. And unfortunately, some people buy his, I won't use the word, but BS. And unfortunately, we don't fall for it. We know better, and facts say different than his spin.
I've just got two more questions.
Yeah.
Speaking of the RNC, staying on that, the Teamsters president spoke at that. I guess what was your reaction to seeing a union leader speak at the RNC? He didn't necessarily endorse Donald Trump, but it definitely seemed to be more favorable towards Donald Trump. I guess what was your reaction to seeing that, and did you watch his speech?
Well, I mean, I'd say this. It takes some courage, to walk into a billionaire's lion's den and talk about working class issues because they don't care about our issues. I'm sure he has his reasons, and. He talked about this somewhat, that he has members that are going to vote, Republican. Look, we have members going to vote Republican. We know that. But I believe in leadership. It's our job to put facts out there and look at what is in the best interest of working class people and us as a union. And, unfortunately, the Republican Party has a track record. Not one Republican voted for the PRO Act. Every piece of legislation significant for organized labor, typically the Republican Party votes vehemently against. So, I don't see a reason for it. I wouldn't entertain it personally, but, he has his reasons. And look, I respect the fact that he's willing to go in there and stand in front of them people and say those things because they sure as hell don't want to hear that stuff.
Do you have an idea of how many UAW members have voted for Trump in the past or will this time around? I don't know if that's something you keep track of. Or...
We've been polling members, and the numbers are overwhelmingly in favor of Harris now and Biden prior to that. But I'm not really focused on numbers and percentages, but I know a huge majority will be voting in this election now for Kamala Harris, and literally it's in our own self-interest, and it's in working class people's interest, union or not. So, and I believe a majority of working class people who have been left behind for decades will vote the same way. And that's really what this election is about, in my opinion. It's about the billionaire's lapdog who's going to do whatever he can to continue to make the rich get richer and leave the working class further and further behind, or you're going to vote for someone in Kamala Harris that has a history of standing with working people and is going to give us a shot.
And my last question would be, is there anyone out there that you're pushing for or think should be Kamala's running mate this election?
Look, there's a lot of great candidates, but I'll be honest. Personally, for me, I love Andy Beshear. The man stood with us every step of the way. He's won, in a state that's red twice now as a Democrat in Mitch McConnell's home state. And also Tim Walz has been a great labor guy. So literally, when we look at it, as a group, we've analyzed all these candidates. We feel like, Beshear and Walz are by far the top two, that represent labor's interest and that will stand up for working class people. I'm a huge fan of Andy Beshear, personally.
Is there anything else, Marlon, you had, or anything else I haven't asked that you wanted to say or touch on? Or?
No, this is just, like I said, this is going to come down to, like I said, this is about working class people taking their lives back, and this is our shot to do that. And, I do talk about a lot about, what this election is about to us. To me, you look at our big three fight, there was really 4 core issues, and 75% of America supported us in that fight, and I believe it's because those issues speak to working class people nationwide and globally, union or not. You look at, it's about living wages, where people can have a job and actually make a living off of it, not a bare living, but a decent living. It's adequate health care, where if someone gets sick, you don't have to worry about losing everything, and choosing between medicine or eating. Retirement security. There's 60% of Americans have no retirement savings in this country, not because they're not responsible, they just don't make enough money to save money. And then taking our time back, getting our lives back, and that's talking about instead of having to work 7 days a week, 12 hours a day, or work 2 and 3 jobs just to scrape to get by paycheck to paycheck. That to me is what this is all about. This is our moment. This is our generation, in my opinion, is a defining moment to take back our lives. And when you look at those issues, those 4 core issues, the billionaire class and Trump's class that he represents have done everything they can to concentrate all that wealth in the hands of the few at the expense of working class people. And I believe Kamala Harris and her team will stand up and fight to ensure that working class people have their shot. So that's about as simple as I can put it.